Here at the University of California, Berkeley, rowing has made a name for itself as one of the most accomplished sports on campus. The men's rowing team was founded in 1868, making it the first sport listed here at Cal, while the women's team was created in 1974.
In the sport of rowing, we use oars to propel the shell, also known as the boat, through the water. In order to compete in this sport, it is crucial to have a waterway with ideal conditions for training. This includes minimal wind, no wakes, and the ability to row for at least 2,000 meters without having to spin and do another lap.
This brings us to one of the most common questions we get asked of members of the women's rowing team. Where do you row? If you were to ask someone from the women's team this question, surprisingly, you would get a different answer than if you asked someone on the men's team.
The women's team primarily rows out of Briones Reservoir. It is about a 4,000-meter course in Orinda, California, about 20 minutes from the UC Berkeley campus.
There are many specific regulations that the members of Cal Women's crew have to follow in order to be able to continue rowing out of the reservoir. These regulations include, but are not limited to, being able to completely take down the boathouse in under 24 hours, no swimming, the dock has to be removable, making it possible to be taken out of the water quickly, and the launches, which are the motorboats that the coaches ride in when coaching, have to be taken out of the water and put in the boathouse after each training session.
When asking the men on the rowing team the same question, where do you row, they have a very different response.
They respond with T. Gary Rogers Boathouse, also known as TGR or the estuary, that has over 150 years of history and is located at the Oakland estuary. This boathouse is very different from the women's. It is full of photos of national champions, awards and trophies, and much more that shows the rich history of both the men's and women's side of Cal rowing. In other words, it is what a typical boathouse one would imagine for a successful Division I men's and women's team hoping to continue their winning legacy.
What's interesting about this legacy is that originally the women were not welcomed at TGR, forcing them to find another place to row.
Since their start in 1974, the women's team has been rowing out of Briones. From appearance, the boathouse is basically a shed with 2 boat bays, a roof that leaks, no running water, and no electricity. It doesn't quite fit the description of a consistently top 3 NCAA winning team and does not nearly compare to the visual aesthetics of TGR.
However, once looking past the bare bones of the boat shed, the waterway is unparalleled to other teams. It is in an L-shaped formation with little coves that run along the side. This provides an ideal shield from the wind so that there is always a section where we are able to row. The water is fresh as opposed to the estuary saltwater. With the water being fresh, it protects our boats and bolts from salt erosion.
With Briones being a reservoir, it is filled with drinking water for its neighboring communities. So, the water is relatively clean, especially compared to the polluted estuary. Best of all, for efficiency, we don't have to worry about cleaning our boats after practice every day. Instead, we are able to spend more time on the water in preparation for our races, making it possible for us to have the best rowing season.
With the women being forced to row at a different boathouse since their existence as a team, it is clear that gender segregation has been a huge part of the Cal crew community. We are separated from the men's team not only through gender but also land. However, despite not being able to row in a world-renowned boathouse, the women's team has still been able to have a great deal of success.
While talking to one of our assistant coaches, who always helps us with the traveling of boats, we were able to understand how Briones had made such an impact. There are no motorboats, no current, no traffic created by the public. This is something that Coach Dustin highlighted as we discussed how lucky we are to have access to Briones. We do have to pay a land permit every year, but that's just one of the small costs to having Briones open to us.
Throughout the past 45 years, Briones has clearly had a significant impact on Cal Women's crew. Even though gender exclusivity is what opened our access to Briones, its natural resources have truly been a blessing to our team's success. We are constantly reminded of how thankful we are for the reservoir, and it has become a part of the identity of Cal Women's crew.
All right, guys, can we say go Bears on 3? 1, 2,